I'm not trying to be disrespectful with what I'm about to say. I understand that football is a team sport. One player is not solely responsible for how successful a team is. But with how bad Michigan's quarterback play was last season, pretty much playing musical chairs with this position, Bryce Underwood is the only Michigan player that matters this year in terms of his play impacting how far this team can go this year. If Bryce Underwood is average or above average, Michigan can find themselves right back in the mix, competing for the Big Ten championship and possibly getting back to the CFP. And there's a lot of pressure and high expectations on Bryce Underwood. They paid a lot of money to get him to flip from LSU. He is tied with Rashawn Gary for being the highest commit in Michigan football history. And he is the only true freshman to ever be featured on the cover of the college football video game. So a lot is expected out of Bryce Underwood. The good thing is they don't need this kid to be Superman. They have done a really good job of making the right moves in the offseason to support him, to make sure that he doesn't have to put that cape on for them to be good this year. You hired offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey, who has a lot of experience as a play caller. He has called plays for 12 years on offense. And 9 out of 12 of those seasons, his offenses have averaged at least 30 points per game. That's a really good resume. And the last good quarterback that he worked with was Drake May, who looked really good his first season in the NFL. And you also got Justice Haynes out of the transfer portal. And with Michigan being a run-first team, that takes a lot of the burden off Bryce Underwood to be good right out the gate. They don't need this guy to play at a Heisman level. And I think it's unreasonable to expect him to be that good this early when there are going to be some growing pains with him. But with the size he has, 6'4", 208 pounds at only 17 years old, he'll turn 18 right at the start of the season. With the missile that he has for a right arm and him just being big as hell, he has the size and he has the skill set to be really productive and possibly be the best true freshman that college football has seen in a very long time. With him having the experienced offensive line protecting him, you have a really good defense. Although Michigan has some really tough games, he's going to get tested early on, going up against Oklahoma on the road and Norman, a hostile environment. My bad, I had a fly into my mouth, but yeah, he's going to be going on the road into a hostile environment with Brent Venables, one of the best defensive minds in college football, who is going to give him a difficult time. You got to go up against Nebraska, USC, Ohio State. You know, Michigan doesn't need for Bryce Underwood to be phenomenal. All they need for him to do is be serviceable. And that's more than good enough, considering that Michigan was in a handful of games that they played in last year, despite pretty much going into every game with their hands tied behind their backs. That's what happens when you have bad quarterback play. And with Bryce Underwood, with his talent level and with the run game that Michigan is going to have, if you can just get a few big plays out of him, like 4 or 5 a game, that can be good enough for you to win at least 9 games. Now, if he ends up playing at above average level and he's up to par with how DJ Lagway looked when he took over as Florida's starting quarterback last year, this can get you back to the Big Ten championship. Michigan is top 10 in returning starters this year. They returned a lot on defense. They got a lot of depth at several positions. Same on offense. The receivers, I'm not really that high on, but it's not like they're bad. It's just they could be a lot better. But with Michigan, when you run the football as much as them, you don't really need a lot of elite receivers. And just with the run-first mentality that this program has, you really don't need much out of Bryce Underwood, but to just make the necessary throws when needed And that's good enough for you to win the majority of your games this year. Nebraska and USC, they're not as good up front as what you are. Ohio State, yeah, they may have the talent advantage over you on paper, but for some reason, you just have a mentality advantage over Ohio State to where this team just doesn't know how to beat you. So despite having a true freshman quarterback this year, if Bryce Underwood ends up being solid or serviceable for the Michigan Wolverines this year, I think they could find themselves right back in the Big Ten championship game. And, you know, with Bryce Underwood, I really don't think that he has to be all world for Michigan to be good this year. I really don't. And if he ends up hitting the ground running out the gate and he exceeds expectations, then look out. Maybe we could see Michigan competing for the national championship again.